Look, it's going to be a business decision for those venues about the financial viability of opening for 10 patrons, or a maximum of 10 patrons at any time. Obviously, it's geared towards the smaller venues. Obviously, 10 patrons in a venue that has a capacity of over 1,000 is an interesting one. So we'll wait and see. We expect to see, particularly in country New South Wales, that many of the publicans that don't sit on their hands really well will open up for their loyal patrons, and we'll see how that goes.
What's the AHA's stance on it?
Look, what we see this as a small step that the state government's allowed us, having reviewed their original decision. It's a small step that demonstrates that we can operate in a COVID-safe manner. And hopefully that will lead to further relaxation where we go back to achieving social distancing, keeping our patrons and our staff safe, but increasing our capacity as we should be able to.
So at what point do you see a wider take-up of the offer from the government? Would it be 50 patrons? Would it be more than 100 patrons?
Look, our pubs, right across the country, quite frankly, are everything from mum and dad small country pubs where they'll be able to sit at a bar and have a meal from today in those 3 states, as you said. But then, right up to the likes of venues that have a 3,000 capacity with a much larger overhead. So, as you increase the numbers through stage 2, stage 3, we will see far more venues take up the opportunity. Some venues actually will be starting to open next week rather than today because they've been shut down for over 7 weeks, which means that what they've been doing, they've reduced their stock of alcohol. They've got no food at the moment, and they've got to put their staff back on. So the ones I've spoken to are either opening today, or some of them will be opening through next week once they get their logistics in place.
Right, because this was only announced last Friday, so they need some time to be able to get things going again, get the kegs fired up, because they've got to check that the taps still work.
Absolutely, but bear in mind, for New South Wales hotels, they only received notification 48 hours ago. Originally, the decision in New South Wales was going to be cafes and restaurants.
That's right.
We went back to the state government and said, well, many of our hotels have restaurants, they have bistros, and particularly in country New South Wales, that's where you go for a meal, for a schnitzel, for a steak, is your local pub. So they made that decision just 2 days ago. So it's short time, but we do know a number of venues that will be opening today.
OK, John, so when a patron goes into, a pub or a restaurant or whatever today, and there is the new rules of just 10 patrons, what's it going to look like? What sort of communal items will be around? What are the menus going to look like? It's going to be different, right?
Oh, look, it's hospitality, but not as we've ever seen it before. You will, don't expect to rock up to a venue and get in. Book ahead. Make sure they've got space. 10 patrons. Either one collective group of 10 or multiple groups that are in there. Probably you'll see seated sessions. So as people come in, there'll potentially be a time limit. But as you said, those common touch points that we expect to see in a pub, a basket in the middle of the table with your cutlery in it, your salt and pepper shaker, your laminated menu, they're all probably going to go away for a while. And you might see, obviously the old chalkboard will still be around, but you might see different methods of having the menus. It might be on an app, it might be on the phone or electric boards. Your payment will be contactless. And so we are going to see a lot of changes just to demonstrate that we can operate effectively. And as I said, hopefully that will lead to further relaxation in the weeks to come.
And is it staff that will have to, police the distances between people, or will there be ranges about, and would that have to be paid for by whatever location?
Yeah, look, it'll be a combination of that, but the message to patrons is one that we need to, as staff, as licensees and as patrons, we need to get this right. We need to demonstrate to government that we can operate safely, that we can easily achieve social distancing in those large venues in particular, and move on from there. So it is actually a whole of community effort.
OK, so it's up to the community to get the larger venues open. So what do you do now? I mean, you just said that you put some pressure on the government, to allow pubs to reopen this Friday, as long as they adhere to those easing of restrictions, the distances and whatnot. So will you be putting more pressure now on the government to be able to quickly turn it around and ask for bigger venues to open, perhaps more than 100 people?
Look, obviously, the safety of our patrons and the safety of our staff is paramount, and that's what the government has been doing in New South Wales. We acknowledge that. But what we're looking for, and the Premier has been quite firm on this, and they've been great about this. So what we want to see is we'll put a business case to them, as to how we should be able to open. The Premier has said in her media conferences that she's appointed a task force to look at opportunities. So we'll present that case, and we're already in discussions on how we can open safely, and that's what we'll be doing.
Just really quickly, could it be done in the next week or 2 weeks?
Look, I think the government has said that they're operating cautiously and using health advice. So we're expecting that they'll consider plans in the next week, yes, but we want to see how these relaxations that start today affect the community.